Hello and welcome to the All About sessions. This is session 5, and here we will come to know about the redundancy and the data center types and many more things. Before going ahead, I would like to tell you that please, if you are attending this session for the first time, please go through before earlier sessions and try to understand the mechanism over there. So just a quick recap that from where we started. We started the requirement or say a user who want to access the website, and we started understanding that he will have a home Wi-Fi router, and then there will be ISP network, the internet will be there, and the data center will be there. In the data center, we will have different zones. In different zones, we are going to keep different devices. Okay, and different servers and different routers, switches will be there. So we made this. Okay, let's try to zoom it over here, what it is. And if we zoom in here, so we will be able to see that there are different zones that we have created. One is the parameter zone or peripheral zone, then presentation layer, then infrastructure layer, then the network rack, and then the application area, then the database area. Right, so we have done that. Okay, so and while we were making that, okay, we understood that there will be three VLANs per server which will be connected. So three cables per server at least will be going out. One will be for the monitoring, one will be for backup, and one will be for production. Over here we did that, and everything will be connecting to the switch. From switch it will go get into the firewall or router, then bigger firewall or router, and then what will happen eventually is that we will connect these presentation layer servers into our uh, main firewall, from where it will not be possible to kind of it will not be able to pass through that without having a proper purpose. It means that the connectivity is coming from the outside to the inside, right? So we will complete this connectivity later on, okay, in next sessions. But before that, we have to understand one thing that is called redundancy. Okay, redundancy. What is redundancy and why it is required? Redundancy is pretty much connected to the high availability. Okay, why high? This is all we are learning about, that how to set up a solution which will be highly available, which will be kind of, if one uh, device is down, one network connection is down, one internet connection is down, then another will be up. That is called N. Okay, so let's call this as N setting. Okay, and when we talk about the data center, there are tier 1 data center, tier 2 data center, tier 3 data center. We will understand the properties while we will going ahead in our next sessions. But today, the point is that we have to understand what is redundancy. Okay, so I will make a small text box over here. Okay, I will say redundancy. Okay, because if we want to achieve the high availability, okay, for our website, then we have to check that each and every component is redundant. Okay, redundant means that if one component is down, then another component will take care. So how the another component will take care? There should be a coordination mechanism, there should be some circuits, there should be some kind of mechanism available on its own, right? One example, that if I want to run this data center, then what are the things that I am going to need? First thing is the HVAC system. So what is HVAC system? That is heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, right? The data center will become very hot. because all of the servers are running, the devices are running, and if these devices are these devices are definitely generating heat. Okay, so that should be there, right? Wax system, then electric, then what do you have? Servers, then network devices are there. Okay, network and firewall, I would like to say, then storage, backups. Okay, let's say storage. Backup, we will talk about that later on. And the internet. Okay, these are the minimum things that we can think about that should be redundant. Now, the ventilation or say air conditioner systems. So how many those should be? Those should be 2 plus 1. Okay, so 2 is our n. 2 is our n. So if this is going to be plus 1, that 1 is going to be the backup. Okay, in next sessions we will understand the calculation that how much cooling capacity is required. All right, so just to give you one very small idea, that each and every device, each and every data center device, whatever it is, comes with the requirement of the uh, cooling requirement, right? Or say how much energy it will generate or how much heat it will generate, right? So it comes like that only. So from there we have to take all of the statistics and put our air conditioner capacity like that. So if one air conditioner is down, then another will take care, but two air conditioner will be there at any point of time providing the cooling, right? If one is down, another will take care. Okay, plus one, that is always standby. And normally what this is the setting, that they rotate. It means that every 8 hours they will automatically switch over. Okay, so that all are in the working condition and we know that everything is good, right? So there should be at least three ventilation systems. Now coming to the electricity also, that one should be the primary, okay, one should be secondary, okay, and then one should be backup. Okay, that is how our systems become, or say data center hosting becomes expensive, right? So one will be the general power supply, which is coming from government or any private service provider. Then we will have one generator set. Okay, definitely. And then there will be another generator set, which will be backup. Plus one more thing is there, that is our UPS, right? Or inverter systems, right? So those actually gets connected to our servers and the devices, right? So over here we are talking about tier 1 data center. Okay, and then let's talk about the servers. Okay, let's go inside the server room and try to understand that what are the things that will be required in a server. Okay, now server is not simple, right? Server can be into the chassis, right? So let me write down the chassis over here. So earlier we saw one chassis, okay, the back side of the chassis. So we will see that we have seen one server and we have seen the network device as well. Okay, so let me figure out a picture of a chassis. So this is the chassis, okay? And if I zoom into that, okay, this is a small chassis. It is little blur, but you will be able to understand. I will explain you what it is. Right. So first of all, you can see that there are fans, okay? And these are the power supplies, right? So what is happening over here is that these fans are pulling the air from the front side and throwing into the back aisle, okay, which is the hot aisle. Okay, so the cold aisle is on the front, the hot aisle is on the back side of any rack. Okay, so that is how the air is circulated. Now, coming back to the power. Okay, power, you can see that there is a power socket, there is another power socket, there are more power sockets over here, and these power sockets are the for the power supply of the servers, right? What it means that if a server is there, okay, let's see the server. Okay, this is the server. Okay, as you can see, there are two power supplies, or there are multiple network devices. There are multiple, RAM slots as well, multiple CPU slots as well, multiple disk slots as well, right? So if we consider it like that, then what happens is that this back plane, this is motherboard or the back plane which is made. Okay. So in this, what happens eventually is that there are at least two power supplies available. If one power supply is down, then what will happen is that this server will still run on the other power supply. Likewise, we have got all of the data center device. That's what makes them little expensive. Not little, it is too much expensive actually, right? So becomes expensive. Now, if we understand and if we see any server from the front side, okay, there are multiple drives. So we have to learn about what these multiple drives are doing. If we will put one drive, then it should be enough, but no, there are multiple drives. Why? So that we can configure RAID, right? Now we will, what is RAID? So RAID is the mechanism to replicate or copy the data to from on multiple resources, right? And if one resource is down, then another source will take over automatically. That is the mechanism. RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 10 are there, right? So we will learn about those RAID configuration when we will be configuring the operating system, or say when we will be configuring the servers. As of now, we have to understand that if a server is there, it has got multiple power supplies, multiple disks, which will take over, plus they have got multiple network card. Okay. Now, why multiple network card? If one network card will be down, then another network card can take over. That is point one. Point two is there where we can do teaming. Okay, we can configure them likewise, that if it is a 10 Gbps network card, right, and we have got two 10 Gbps network card, so we can configure them like that it will become 20 Gbps as well. Okay, that configuration is also available. So how much redundancy is there? Power redundancy, disk redundancy, cooling redundancy, plus network redundancy is already available. Okay, let's continue. Server is done. Now we will see the, we have seen the chassis and we have seen the server. Now, what about the network component? For the network, we have already discussed over here that there will be multiple devices always configured. Okay, so if one is down, another will take over. Okay, and we have already discussed one thing clearly, that they have the single IP address for some reasons, right? And then, and that servers is that configuration, that so that they can share one IP address, right? Okay, like we were talking about when we were configuring these servers, right? And we were configuring the front end component like over here, correct? So we have seen that. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so server is there, network is there. Now we have to understand so many terms over here. Okay, we will talk about each and every term one by one. Storage, we know that is redundant. Okay, but on the storage, the wonderful thing I tell you, like this storage is there. If you will open this, that you will see two backplanes. If one is down, another will take care, right? So these storage devices are much more robust. Okay, because all of the servers, all of the applications are storing data on storage device, right? If this will be down, it will be a big impact. So what it has got? It has got two backplanes, right? And of course, multiple connectivity channels and all, right? So let's continue and see that storage and then the internet. Now, what will happen eventually is that if this data center is having only one internet and that goes down, then what will happen? Nothing will work. So they should definitely have multiple internet connection. Okay. Now, talking about the application hosting, talking about the more technologies that we have to know, right? So if I will start, then I will say one thing was I discussed with you RAID. Another is teaming. I discussed about load balancer. And one more thing is cluster. Okay. So those are the things we have to consider, that what can be implemented in these things. Okay, not about the physical systems and the electricity. Okay, their systems are completely different. They have got huge switches, failover switches, so that if one device is down, another takes care automatically. And that too is free into the frictions of milliseconds or yeah, like that. Okay, now we have to understand what is RAID, what is teaming, what is load balancer, and what is cluster, and where that can be applied. Okay, RAID is majorly when we talk about, is related to the storage systems. Okay, teaming is normally related to the network. Okay, and there was a time when the teaming of the disks was also in place. Okay, how that was, we cannot see because those technologies are not available right now, but that has taken over the rate. Okay, right. Then the load balancer, we have discussed about it little bit. So we have to configure the load balancer, which will be eventually providing the connectivity to our servers from the outside world. But inside also we can have the load balancer, enterprise applications for an enterprise. So there might be multiple load balancer, but how the load balancer actually works, how the configuration looks like, is a very interesting part actually, right? So there are not so many load balancers in the organization. There may be only one or two load balancer that can be that can be shared across the application. Now, one load balancer, multiple application. Yes, we have to know about it. It's a very nice device. Load balancer is a very nice device, very intelligent device. Depends that how much capability you want to utilize, but we can do that, right? Now, cluster, right? Cluster. Why cluster? Okay, what is the need of the cluster? While the load balancer is there, why we should have the cluster? Cluster manages the resources behind. Cluster manages the resources behind. Okay, behind it means that there is one IP address in the front and there are resources at the back end. Now, how does it manage? It makes them active and inactive. Okay, and then the cluster events are there which can be utilized further for different active, deactive, purposes, right? And the load balancer does not have its own resources. It does not care that what is in the background. What it does is that whatever is configured, that to check whether the background resource is working or not, it does not provoke the services to be active or inactive, but cluster can do that. All right. So in the load balancer, it is very straight for network device. Okay, we do not have to think twice. Okay, now the load balancer are the physical also and the virtual also, right? So the way that we are learning over here is the very strategically, so that slowly we can see all of the components, each and every component. We understand what can be load balanced, what can be clustered, which can be done through the hardware, which can be done through the software. Okay, over here, while we are talking about all of those things, right? So, the virtualization has started way back. Okay, virtualization has started up to the extent that now we have got the network devices, we have got the firewalls, we have got the load balancers as well, which are the virtualized. Those are called appliances, virtual appliances. So it is a simple VM which comes across, and we just install it in our VMware, Hyper-V, OpenStack, or anything like that, and we just go ahead and start using that. It does not take any space for the installation. It just takes some CPU and the memory, and obviously their performance seems to be quite good. Okay, but the way that we will configure them, we will have to make sure that we configure them something like that. We give them the enough CPU, enough memory, so that they can transfer so much data and do the processing. Ultimately, they are processing some rules, right? So on any device there are some rules, so those need some CPU power to process. Okay, and as much as traffic is going, definitely they are going to use more CPU and memory. Okay, let's talk about that. Let's talk about little about now what we have done over here. We have configured, or say we have seen that these all things should be redundant. Okay, so while we will be selecting our server, we have to make sure that it has got the internal redundancy, right? That will make your server little bit bigger, of course, and expensive, right? So that is why there are different type of servers are there. That is why different network devices are there. And yes, UPS also, that UPS has its own mechanism for the failover, right? If it is getting the electricity from any outside uh, resource, then it is not going to use the batteries that it has got. Okay, and then uh, once any failure or anything has happened, or anything happens that it is not getting the electricity, it will start serving the electricity from the batteries available with this. Okay, so that is fine, I guess. So you understand that what is the redundancy and how it is achieved on the device level. Okay, now when we will be configuring the software, so software should be able to handle the sessions. Software will be able to handle the user data which is into the memory. Okay, that if one device is going down, it has got a lot of processing going on, and say 50 users are 50 threads are there, or 5,000 threads are there, and the device is going, and that's how the session will be transferred to the other device. Those all configurations we are going to see, right? And now storage I didn't talk about, but let's see the storage. We just talked about the backplane, right? But now we will talk about this one. Okay. So as you can see, there are so many disks over there. So if I'm going to take out this disk, then is this going to work? Yes, it is going to work. It is configured that way. So that is the RAID 5 configuration. Okay. And the RAID 10 is the most expensive one. So we will have a single session for just to understand much more in the detail that how the RAID will work, okay, and how, what are the different types of RAIDs, right? So over here we have done the redundancy. Okay, redundancy is one thing. Redundancy is between the, or say inside the data center. Okay, now one thing that I would like to tell you, that right now we are talking about one enterprise level data center where I am a company, I have got a data center. But if I am a data center service provider, what will happen? If I am a data center service provider, like, there are so many big companies are there who provides the physical data center space to its clients, right? So what they have to do, right? What they have to do, they have to put the racks into the cages. Okay, racks and the cage. So what is a rack and what is a cage? Okay, I think I did show you one picture of a data center where what was happening is that there was a cage and there was some racks kept over there, and I told that cage was electrified. It means that it was having the electricity, and it has got the power, and if you are going to touch that, you are going to get an electric shock, right? So what happens is that those data center service providers, not, this is not the enterprise uh, data center. It means that it is not dedicated to one company. Anyone can go and say that I need 2 rack space. Okay, and they will give the 2 rack space. And what will happen eventually, that you can go ahead and you can send your certified engineer, or say qualified engineer, into the data center. Okay, they will have to wear in anti-static shoes, they will have to get the permission, they will have to get their batches, their company authority letter, and not everyone can go into the data center. It should be a particular person, right, designated, who knows that how to get into the data center. Okay, how to use the data center facility, and how to do the assembly of the servers, how to mount the servers without damaging any other things, right? So qualified staff will go only over there, and with the anti-static shoes. So in the data center, what we have, the raised floor and other things, we will talk about this in our next session, that how to make a data center, how to do the calculation of vac ventilation, how to do the calculation of the electricity and the server space required. But over here, what I am talking about is the data center service provider. So if the data center service provider is there, so if I go to the data center service provider, I will seek for 2 racks. Okay, then they will say that what is the purpose of the rack, I will have to provide them. Okay, and then what kind of facilities that I am going to need from them, what kind of devices, how much heat I am going to generate over there, and accordingly they are going to charge me, right? It is not simply that 2 rack space and this much, that's it. No, they will ask me each and everything, I will have to provide them the details, and then they will provision the rack in a particular area. Okay, so that they can balance the heating, electricity and other things in their data center. Then they are going to provide me the space. After they will provide me the stage things, then they will ask that are you going to, definitely I'm going to need one internet connection. Then from where I'm going to get the internet connection? Is this going to be the redundant? What will be the device? They will provide me that space, that you apply for the internet connection, somebody will come, they will have to put their device over there, and from there will be one, and this will be definitely into the peripheral zone. It is not going to be within my rack. Okay, it means that all of the internet connections connects into the peripheral zone. So it means that data center service providers peripheral zone will be very big. Okay, because there will be different devices for all of their customers will be installed, and redundant devices will be also be there. Okay, so we have talked about the redundancy, we have talked about the data center service provider. We have not talked about that if this data center is down by any chance, what is going to happen? Then we will have to have the DR, that is called disaster recovery. What is that? Disaster recovery site. Now, what is disaster recovery site? Okay, disaster recovery site is similar or the lesser capacity of the primary site. Okay, first rule. Second rule, it gets activated or say it starts serving to its customer or say users only when the primary is down. There are scenarios when we have the active configuration as well. We will talk about this later on, but that is a very huge configuration, and in the very rare cases it is required. Okay, but the main uh, motive of the disaster recovery site is there. The primary is down, the secondary should take care, and the user should not feel anything, right? User should not know. This yellow guy is not going to know anything that what is going around, right? But yes, this is a very expensive system, extremely expensive system. And as if this is going to be the 100% of the capacity, then whatever is into the primary data center, the similar thing will be installed, similar devices will be installed into the DR site, and what will happen is that it will cost the same, and plus there will be a cost, there will be connectivity in between, right, for the copying of this much, all of the data is copied over there, right? So there will be a separate data center connected, primary and secondary. There will be a separate link just for the replication. Okay, in next session, what will happen? We will discuss more about the load balancer configuration, cluster configuration, much more in detail, so that we can configure our devices, our servers, our application in a way that the redundancy works. Okay, and the user does not feel anything, right? User should not know, right? That is the motive of all these exercises. All right, so what we have learned today, let's do a quick recap and we can close the session. Right, so we know that there are the heating, ventilation and air conditioning systems, okay, which are required to keep the data center cool and circulate the air. Okay, then there are electrical components versus electricity backup systems. Okay, so what will happen is that we will have multiple resources of the electricity, right? The chassis is there in the server racks, okay, where servers are mounted. It has its own mechanism of handling the power and the ventilation. If one CPU or say one ventilation fan from the server is down, another will take care. If the capacity of one is less, then another will take care. It means that two can also work together. Two fans can also work together, and they will throw a lot depending on the heating of the server. It two fans will run, and they will throw out the air on chassis, on server, in network devices, storage devices, all where the mechanism is there. That is why the server is a server. You cannot put any other device, any normal device called as a server. Okay, but there are servers Windows server, Linux server, and all other servers, those are the software server. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the physical server. They've got their own very nice mechanism, right? Okay, so chassis is there, which has got its own mechanism of cooling. And plus, if there are two electricity points, then one electricity should come from one source, another electricity point will get the electricity from the another source. That is the purpose, right? So if one power is down, it will automatically start getting the electricity from another source. That is the purpose of having two electric points in all of the servers, chassis, network devices, storage, right? So that is the redundancy of the electricity in all of these devices. So, and on top of that, what we have to configure, we have to configure the cluster and the RAID. So what will happen eventually is that it will become more robust system. So while we are designing the data center, when we are designing the infrastructure for some application, or so we are designing the application itself, then we have to consider each and every part. Okay, it is not simple that we just install the application and it will start working. We are talking about the serving the customer with the uptime of 99.999. Okay, that becomes, if you calculate that how many hours are there, so and what does it mean, that how much downtime I am going to get, is if we are going to talk about the 5 nines, then we get the only 4 hours of downtime per year. You can read it out on the internet, or I will share these things in next session. I will let you know that what kind of the data centers are there, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, right? And where are they? I can tell you that how to locate them. What is the disaster recovery site? How to configure that? What are the things that need to be configured? We are definitely going to learn in our new, or say, next session, right? That's it for now. So don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe. If you think that these sessions are useful and it can benefit to anyone, these are definitely free for all. Thank you, everyone.